Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the U World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Karolina Labreque. She is a PhD and is a holistic behavioral consultant and life coach who specializes in assisting individuals ranging from teenagers to adults of all ages in reducing stress, reaching their full potential, and living more balanced lives. So whether you're diagnosed with ADHD, ADD, ASD, or have no diagnosis at all, Karolina's approach focuses on the individual and not the diagnosis. She truly believes that everyone is capable of having a fulfilled, happy, and balanced life, and her mission is to help others achieve it. So welcome to the show, Karolina. It's really great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's my honor to be here.
So we were talking about a bunch of stuff before we started recording. I'm not really even sure where we should dive in, but you were talking about the Beamer PMF.
Yes.
Is that what you call it? Do you use that with?
I do it. I use it daily. I use it daily. My whole family uses it daily. And I then use it in my practice with my clients, the ones that are not remote or are local and can come into my office. They use it as well. And some of my clients do purchase it and use it as well daily. So it's a wonderful device that improves your circulation and recovery. It's actually proven to improve your circulation by about 30% on the capillary levels. What doesn't mean in a layperson language, it's that 75% of your circulatory system, it's capillaries. So we think that the heart is the main thing, and it's not. Actually, 75% of your whole cardiovascular system is capillaries. So the device fits right with my lifestyle, which is, holistic, no side effects, no chemicals. My body personally hates chemicals to the point of anaphylaxis to a lot of them. So I'm very tricky. Like last year, I spent 5 days in ICU because the doctor insisted I take antibiotics given for a kidney infection. So that was a nice ride. So I live very clean life personally, and I walk the talk. So I don't just coach people. I actually do walk the talk, and most of the things that I recommend with clients, I've tried them myself. And Beamer fits into that. I have a system of befriending your life. And that consists of befriending quest, which is basically knowing your quest map and where are you going, befriending time and filious boundaries, befriending your mind, and befriending the body and befriending your surroundings. So the Beamer really fits into befriending the body, helping with recovery and with your holistic all-being. We could spend an hour or two just talking about that. So that's all I'm going to say. But yes, definitively, it's a device that if someone wants to learn more about, they can reach out to me and we can have a chat about it.
And you and I will be having that chat at another time.
Definitely.
So how did you get started in all of this?
That's an interesting question. It's a whole journey, and I'm glad we have 40 minutes. It may take all 40 minutes now, it will not. But so even as a child, I knew I'm a healer. So I always was I have two personalities. I have a healer and a fighter, and more of a warrior than a fighter. And depending which button you push, you may get a very different person. So as a child, I did modern pentathlon. To this day, I fence, I gunshot. I do stuff like that. It's up my alley. But at the same time, I'm a healer. So Reiki and other things like that are also up my line of work. A healer and an educator. So as a child, I always wanted to be an MD. And then when I was ready and started college, I did a lot of internships. It was between, do I want to be a vet or a doc, right? As many of us do. And so I practiced both. I did a vet teching gigs, and I did volunteer in hospitals to the point of standing, being at open heart surgeries and other procedures. And that was always fascinating. However, I did not deal well with patients dying or having to put the dog down, and I've realized that I like a profession that my clients don't die. So I finished my master in psychology. And while I was completing that in interdisciplinary core, then I moved and I did my massage therapy at the same time. And I got very involved in hippotherapy, which is therapy through horse. And in Europe, you can practice that without being licensed. In the United States. You have to be either PT, OT, or speech therapist. So when I moved to States, I was doing therapeutic horseback riding. But my PhD, so my master was in psychology, but then while I was going through psychology, I always was missing the other side of it, the science behind the body. And so my PhD was in physical therapy, research based on autism and horses, because someone told me that I cannot, there's no way I'm going to write a PhD on horses. So I went and did. Why not? And so it was actually a synchronization of sensory motor synchronization and autism during hippotherapy. And I'm not going to bore you with details. It was both behavioral and very functional biomechanical study. So I did that. Then I moved to States, totally not by incidents, because I actually did high school in Texas and my parents were in States. And I took a little briefer after my PhD. I had a job aligned in England. And in taking that 6 months off, I've met my husband while I was spending time with my parents. So I kind of canceled that job in England and ended up staying in States. And I've been married for 15 years now. And for a big chunk, probably 7 first years, I was working predominantly with developmental disorders. I don't like that phrase, but that it is what it is. So very severely affected people, adults and children, both with autism, cerebral palsy, and basically you name it, I probably worked with most of the diagnoses in a form of therapeutic horseback riding or behavioral technician, whatever. And somewhere in that road, because my PhD was in physical therapy and physical education, I started my own fitness center out of the fencing club I was part of, and I got into wellness coaching. And so I was doing that on a side while I was building my autism clientele and working with the severe disabilities and doing my credits for my BCBA license in States, because nothing translates.
Where are you from?
Poland.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly, United States is very weird about assuming how that works. To give you an example, my master in psychology, it's 5 years of psychology class now only. So I have about 120 classes in psychology, and a state in New Hampshire said, doesn't matter, your paper doesn't say clinical, we don't count any of it. It gets even better. I actually
doesn't translate, apparently.
So it gets better. I actually taught at university, both in Poland, medical universities and psychology department, and at community college in States for over 10 years, anything psych. So I'm apparently qualified to teach this at the college level, but it does not translate. So for a licensing. So basically they wanted me to do everything over again, to which I said, well, it's kind of silly for me to take classes that I teach.
Right.
So in midst of that, I discovered the license for BCBA, which I was bridging. But a long story short, doing that behavioral training, I was in a car wreck, a very severe one, actually. Someone did a 180 into my line on the highway. So I T-boned a pickup truck about probably going 45 an hour because I was hitting the brakes. Nothing broken. My CRV became a size of my foot, just to give you a comparison. However, severe concussion and post-concussion syndrome and severe whiplash. I'm still in rehab for it 8 years later. We'll get to that in a second, but now it's more tuning and pushing my boundaries, and sometimes my body still reacts to that pushing with a tantrum, as I call it. But it does. So in that journey, I supposed to be on a permanent disability. So probably 18 months into it, the whole medical team, the post-concussion center, and my neurologist decided that this is all the progress you're going to get. This is what it is. Mind you, I had 2 children in that time. I had a 3-year-old and a newborn. And so they're telling me that, my lack of memory, my lack of concentration, the fact that I couldn't walk a straight line and I was very wobbly. And if I step on the grass, I was flat on my back because of my back. I walked towards basically for 3 years practically. That's it. And neurologists legally suggested that I go on permanent disability. Well, I'm a Polish woman, together with that line of you will never ride a PhD in horseback riding. So when he told me that he very strongly suggests I start applying for permanent disability through Social Security, I very politely in English told him that I disagree with his prognosis. In Polish language, in my head, I said something very different. That's probably should not have. If you can imagine along the lines of where it was and where he can put that opinion. And I kept searching, and I'm like, with my background and rehabilitation background, my background is both PT and OT. I was like, this is silly. I mean, brain takes time to recover. And even in my half brain state, I remember that much that brain takes time to recover. And there are other ways to do it. So I just kept searching and tweaking my nutrition. And I finally found 3 years into it. Lord has a way of working. I've heard about this guy about 3 times. Look at his webpage. Didn't really resonate because he's not much into web pages. Old-fashioned PT then I met his wife at the networking event because I was running my business. It's like, you have to work with my husband. They had a whole clinic and I'm like, yeah, I'm in a personal training now and this and that. And there was excuse. And finally I went to a wellness fair. I had a booth. He was in front of me, had another booth. And I couldn't move. Like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to drive home. So he actually helped me within 7 minutes, unlocked my neck. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be on his table. And for last 5 years, I've been on his table. So there are ways. And tweaked my nutrition, got introduced to Beamer, tweaked tons of other stuff. And here we are. I'm not on permanent disability. I've been running a business. I switched from developmental disorders to full life coaching. I still have clients who are somewhere on a spectrum, but they're high functioning people, mostly because everyone, even I agree that I probably should not get hit on the head again. And if you know about severe disabilities, the chances of you getting even micro concussions constantly is pretty bad because behavior is communication and that's how they communicate. So that's how I'll end up doing what I'm doing. Interestingly, it's a continuation. It's really continuation. Now I work a lot with trauma. I work a lot with burnout. So a lot of my knowledge from the physical therapy and psychology of nervous system and working with all of that, it comes handy. And my method is 360 mind, body, and spirit. And I like to say that it's 90% science, 5% voodoo, and 5% common sense.
I love it.
Sometimes you just have to ask the client, and how is that exactly serving you? So it's very science-based, but it's not the regulated science base. I always look at what's newest. I'm a biohacker. It's not what was 5 years ago, it's what's now.
A lot of the voodoo stuff, the woo stuff, as we like to call it, it is science. It just hasn't been proven yet. There's lots of anecdotal evidence that you can gather. And, if it's working, who cares what you call it?
Well, the voodoo stuff, like, let's say, the law of attraction and the manifestation, now we're starting to touch on quantum physics and realizing that time is just a construct. And, and there is hardcore research on that most people can even understand. I don't understand the very, like, even with my education, I'm slowly getting into it, but I'm not going to claim that that's something that I'm reading like this, even that I'm a nerd and I live on PubMed. And, my idea of fun time is to read a science article in the evening. That's my idea of relaxation. We just don't know yet. It's kind of like penicillin used to be a voodoo, right?
Yeah.
You use this thing and magically you got better, right? And now we have the resistance to antibiotics, which, by the way, has nothing to do with human use, but predominantly 90% of the resistance to antibiotic is based on
animal
in vet and in farming and in animals, and that's where the issue's coming in.
And we're eating it.
And we're eating it. So, for example, I'm allergic to antibiotics I've never taken. So how can I react to something that my system was not exposed to? Yet here we are. So now I'm sourcing my own food from local farmers, and I'm very adamant about, minimal. Obviously, once you become anaphylactic, it's my goal so I proved the neurologist wrong. My next goal is to prove my allergologist wrong, and to actually get my nervous system and my immune system, they are very connected to the level where it's not so reactive. I'm probably going to be carrying an EpiPen to the rest of my life because it's just...
all you have to do is have one experience with that and you're like, oh no.
And it's also, for me, it's also Yellow Jackets. So that one is a little different story because you can't avoid those bastards and they're everywhere. So this is the time of a year when my head is on a swivel and I'm that weird person asking, what's there? What's flying? But because unfortunately, Yellow Jackets is a ventilator for me. But it's so my next goal is to calm down my autoimmune system so it does not have a tantrum all the time, and it's durable, and I know it's durable. It's just the matter of priorities.
I can totally see it for you, and really that's the first place is knowing that it's possible, and then eventually it will become a reality in your life. Everything starts with a thought.
It's a thought, and it's kind of interesting because we talked about the science. So the first time I got allergic and I ended up on a ventilator because of Yellow Jackets and probably because I waited too long. So now I know, and I take the epinephrine right away and go to ER and they pump me up full of other lovely stuff. But that first time you don't know. So a year earlier I was stung by 6 and I had nothing. Well, my legs swelled a little bit, but it was painful. And that time I got stung by 1. So I was like, whatever, right? Not the first time you got stung by a bee or a Yellow Jacket. And so I waited, and then I went to urgent care, which obviously they gave me epinephrine, but it was a very prolonged time before they started to act on it. So the whole reaction had enough time to wrap up to the visible level. But the interesting part is that when I got out of the hospital, and obviously they directed me to allergy doctor, the doctor was arguing with me that I was not anaphylactic. And I'm like, so why did I just spend 3 days unconscious in the ICU unit if I wasn't anaphylactic? And he's like, well, the doctor overreacted. So, and he based it on a level of antibodies I have in my body to Yellow Jacket. And so to prove me wrong, he pulled my labs and he proved himself wrong. Because there is a protein that when you are an anaphylactic, you have that protein. And I was full of that protein, even with those very low numbers of antibodies in my body, which just tells you that my system is very sensitive. Which also brings us to the conversation that not everything goes by the medical chart and the statistical probability. I always say I'm a zebra. When I go to a doctor, I'm like, I'm a zebra. I'm not a hypochondriac. Be very mindful. You see a zebra. I'm that 0.1%. So, and of course, half of them is like, yeah. And then there's like, shoot. Oops, we thought we were joking. No, I wasn't. So it's an interesting combination. But yes, it starts with the thought. It starts with the thought and energy that you put into it, and then with work. None of it is fast. None of this is, it didn't take my body 5 days to get to this state. So it's not going to take my body 5 days to get out of this state of freaking out for various things.
Yeah. There's chemistry and biology, and they work at a certain pace. And sometimes you can make it work faster by adding different things, but it's still chemistry.
Well, it's also
the reactions.
habituation. It's also habituation and changing your habits. And, allergies aside, it's the same. And I actually believe that allergies are very connected to your mind. And if you know 75% of there is actually huge gut, 75% of your immune system is in your gut. And there's a huge gut brain connection. And if my gut freaks out, why can I have IV antibiotics, but I cannot have any of the oral ones? Like it's much safer for me to actually have an IV antibiotic than the oral ones. Not all of them, but it's safer because it bypasses my whole digestive system.
Interesting.
The other thing is, for example, that for vagal nerve, that I work a lot with vagal nerve, and the vagal nerve, it's an interesting nerve if you ever look it up. It's very popular now. I actually used it in my PhD 19 years ago when it was a new thing. One of the reasons I used it was because of the change of how do you calm a child, right? So the change of the angle and stimulating your receptors in your heart. But that aside, vagal nerve in Polish language, the translation of vagal is basically wandering. It's a nerve that wanders, and it's all over your freaking body.
Touches
It
all your
affects like
organs.
so many things, from digestion to social interactions, heart rate, breathing, and everything else in between. It wanders all over the place. And interestingly, vagal nerve is 75% or 80% sending information to the brain, and only 15% getting information from the brain. So think about that.
That's interesting.
So it brings us to that living, you said you add something. I'm a big fan of eliminating. And for example, I have no desire to go back to using regular laundry detergent that I have hives after using, because that's just the gentle way or not so gentle way of my body saying, hell, this is crap. I don't want it, right? So why would I add it back in? It's always a proposition of what serves me best. How can I befriend my life? That's when my principal says, what's friendly to me?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be friendly to everybody. It just is you. It's specifically to your body and your life. I love that.
I'm happy that you said that, because befriending your life, befriending your mind, we think that we live in the same world. In reality, I can put 20 people in the same room, and every single of this person will experience that room differently. And it starts on such minuscule level of how sensitive are your receptors. I have this accent not because I didn't try. I'm tone deaf, and yet somehow my daughter we haven't tested her, but she's probably perfect pitch. Right now she's yelling at me, Mom, get the piano guy to tune the piano. And I'm like, it sounds fine to me, and she's like, it really has to be off for me to notice. And if you play two notes to each other, I cannot tell them apart, right? So this accent is not going anywhere because I don't hear it. That's how my brain, and I try the recordings, I do a ton of videos, and that's just how I hear it. There is no way of correcting it. So where I'm going with this is that something may serve me, but it may not serve you. And for me, the chemical sensitivities are such that we don't use anything toxic in our house, because my body has a tantrum within probably 30 minutes. Yeah. So,
and you really should pay attention to it. So I need to ask you, how do you help people? I mean, how do you work with them in terms of like, is it one-on-one? Is it in person? Is it online? Do you do group settings?
so
How
I
does
do
all
all of
that
the
look?
above. I've been doing this for a long time. The groups are starting. They were groups, then I dissolved them. I help people, and I have two sides to my business. So I mentor coaches, and the newest thing is my coaching certification. It's not a 5-day certification. Just to be honest, it's a university level knowledge, really knowing the knowledge, the skills, and the business side of it. So that's one side of my business, and that's all online. And then my coaching, I work both in groups and in person, and as a speaker and workshop facilitator. Some clients come to my house, to my office. I have a home office. It's a dedicated separate space. But I would say 96% of my clients are online. I worked a lot with burnout and stress management and executive functioning. So what's executive functioning? We haven't touched on that. It's not executive coaching. It's basically think about being the boss of your life. So things like prioritization, time management, working memory, metacognition, understanding yourself, and how to best be the boss of yourself. That's executive functioning in an easy way to explain. So a lot of my clients are business owners, and somehow, still that neurodiversity persists. So a lot of them are twice exceptional, meaning gifted plus something, because everyone thinks that, having a high IQ is such a blessing. Well, like with nothing in nature, if you up one thing, it's out of balance. So most of those people are very sensitive, a lot of them have ADHD and other issues that not issues, they're just neurodiverse. So I attract a lot of neurodiverse clients. A lot of women in divorce, either in the process of it, some men in divorce. Basically, what's next? How do I manage my life? I want to go to the next level. So my tagline is changing lives one behavior at a time and untangling the tangle. I have a business and I'm a mother and I have a husband, and please someone shoot me because I can't anymore, right? That's my specialty, kind of untangle the tangle of how can I
Trying to
balance.
be everything for everybody.
Yeah, so it's a lot of burnout, stress, and post-COVID, it's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
The COVID, and it's global. The COVID, we all have trauma to some extent. Everyone goes through their life, has traumatic events. Some of us, land up with post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of us end up with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is like the next step. So I actually have this graphic when I show it, when it says stress, trauma, PTSD, and complex PTSD, right? So it's a spectrum. And I think the COVID was hard enough that it shocked up, it pushed enough button in a lot of people that PTSD shows up more. The dynamic change was such that, sometimes it's the cherry and sometimes it's a whole bucket on the cake that makes the difference. And so still a lot of clients dealing with a lot of that nervous system reactions. So I coach somatically. So I'm a somatic coach. We do a lot of mind regulation, but predominantly also body regulation, right? Because thoughts are thoughts. And you can't really control your thoughts, even that we like to think that we control the thoughts, but we don't. But how you respond to those thoughts or how you respond to your environment is a totally different story. And that's what I teach my clients of. For those of you that watched Tolkien, it's that Gandalf White standing with a spear in the ground and that's swirl around him and you're just standing there. And that's part of the life, to being able to just ignore the chaos and still stand your quest and stand your journey and stand on your path.
And confident that it's not going to knock you over.
And if it does, to land softly, right? Because let's be honest, sometimes we get, there are some things like car wrecks or severe trauma in family that you can't control those. I have this saying that's not very politically correct, but shit happens.
Yeah.
There is nothing you can do about it. You can learn to fail. I laugh because with all the things I do not to get injured, my 7-year-old just learned how to ride a bike, and in excitement wanted to show me and drove from behind into my knees.
Oh,
I'm very happy I can still do it. Apparently, I can still do a perfect safety roll on a concrete. My shoulder is thanking me to this day. It was about 3 weeks ago. I scraped up. It was between 2 conferences in my parents. Hit my head on the ground, which again, shouldn't.
yeah.
But you can control for everything, and here comes your 7-year-old and takes you out from behind, on a bicycle, and you'll end up hitting the ground. So the ability to do the safety roll, right? That even if something knocks you off, how to soften the blow and how to get up faster and safely in that situation,
Right.
is among other things that I teach. Yeah.
Very important pieces of the puzzle. I had my dog like rip my feet out from under me and landed on the cement and gravel, and I had a black eye for a couple of weeks. My husband didn't like being seen with me because people thought he'd hit me. So, no, it was the dog. But yeah, just like stuff happens when you're not even looking, and to have the tools to be able to manage those kinds of things it's golden. So I know you have an offer on your website that you give to people. It's 5 hacks to simplify your life. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so it's a very short PDF that just gives you 5 very simple hacks to start. It's not a solution to everything, but it's a starting point. And it's a very, and it follows up by an email sequence, obviously. So for 7 weeks, you get an email going deeper into that. I'm also rebuilding my newsletter. So if you get on that list, I am going to start. I took a break. I changed my platforms. I went from Keep to Go High Level and had to redo the whole system. So I'm going actually in June, I'll be back to posting newsletters. But it's it's an easy way to start. It's an easy free way to start, to just look at it from a different perspective of really simplifying. For mostly it's called for busy woman, but it also works for busy men. So it's that's what it is. And you can also follow me on social medias. I post a lot of free content that's around that 5 pillars of life, and start there.
Awesome. So what's the one thing that you hope the audience takes away from our conversation today? We've talked about so much.
Well, and we haven't even scratched the surface yet, but the one thing is that, first of all, and most for, is that you don't have to do it alone. But that springs from love thyself first. You cannot pour from empty. So you have to take care and love yourself. If you want to love other people, you have to love yourself first. And love is the highest vibration, talking about the voodoo. Love is the highest vibration. So love yourself, love the world, and remember that you don't have to do it alone. You can contact me, or you can find someone else, whoever is supposed to be your guide on this journey, but it's much easier when you don't do it alone.
Yes, we all need community. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the U World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.